Welcome to Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw. I would be Bradshaw. That would be Mr. Briscoe, wherever he would be. And one of the hottest angles in the history of this business was this man. So a 10 hunt, you maggots.
Yes, you were maggots.
Best baby faces of all time. One of the best bad guys of all time. One of the best guys of all time. Sgt Slaughter. Sergeant, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Sarge, always a pleasure to see you. You and I go way back to our first trips to Japan, so it's always a pleasure to see you back when you had a full head of hair and I had some hair. Yeah, I had some hair also, and we were rookies on that Japan tour, got tortured, tried to get tortured every night, but I think we scared all those Japanese people off because they didn't try us too many times.
We did. Yeah, back then I had waving hair. It was waving goodbye.
Yeah. And John, just so you'll know, Sarge is one of the best damn road partners in the world. I won't say much about his driving because that leaves a little bit to be desired. But this man knows every song Hank Williams ever wrote, man, plus every song that David Allen, Cole, Willie Nelson.
Oh, man.
He could sing along with me. He knows the lyrics, and he's like me. He can't carry a tune unless he sings real loud, you know.
That's right.
Then we both sound good.
We did a lot of laughing and crying down the highway with Vern Joslin. I remember a song we always used to listen to was called Chiseled in Stone. And it was about a man who lost his wife and went to a bar to have a drink. And the guy next to him had started telling him a story that his wife died, but, you know, she was buried in the cemetery, and all he talked about was, you don't know lonely till you see it chiseled in stone. That is lonely.
That's lonely, brother.
Sarge, where were you guys riding partners at? What territory?
Mostly everywhere in the WWE. Actually, we started traveling when it was the WWWF, if we're allowed to say that anymore. I hope I don't get fined. But,
you're allowed to say it on here. You may still be commissioner. We're not sure. Have you had commissioner license revoked? You may still be the WWE commissioner.
That's right. That's right. I just gave it up for Shawn Michaels so he could come back. So I might still be officially the commissioner there.
Sarge, you've had so many roles with the WWE, but I'd like to start, in your earlier days. I mean, who was the nut that come up with beautiful Bob Remus?
Well, that was me. I'm sorry. My one of my favorite wrestlers was the Crusher Lazowski from Milwaukee, the wrestler that made Milwaukee famous, and at the same time.
I thought that was Budweiser.
Yeah, superstar Billy Graham was in the territory also. And when I started doing my training, I started using the superstar Billy Graham look, where I had the long blonde hair and the muscles and the tie-dyed shirts, and I used the Crusher's voice. He talked out the side of his mouth, kind of like that, and so I combined the two, and I got to thinking, well, maybe I should be Beautiful Bobby, and that's how Beautiful Bobby got started. My first territory was up in Vancouver, Canada, and I worked for Gene Kiniski and Sander Kobar, and I wrestled there for about 2 weeks. My first night in, I got there, you know how the ribs are in this business. They tell me to come a week early, so I do, and they put me in this hotel in the middle of Vancouver, and nothing really to do. I go down and have a few drinks at the bar. There's a cute little redhead that was a bartender, and every day I try to look at the paper to see if my name was in the advertisement for the wrestling matches, which was on a Monday. I got there on a Tuesday, and the following Monday was the matches. So I started going through the newspaper, and finally one Friday I came down. She said, "Hey, I just saw the wrestling ad in the newspaper." So I said, "Where is it?" So I started looking at it, And I went down and I saw all these famous wrestlers on the card. And then at the end, it said, plus one other match. That was me, plus one other match. So
that was beautiful, Bobby.
Yeah, I didn't even get advertised. I was just plus one other match. So I cut the ad out, sent it to my dad. I said, Dad, I'm famous. I made it. I'm plus one other match. And so
well, you were all over the country. That plus one other match was everywhere on the billboards on every damn a card in the country. So you were everywhere, Sarge. But fortunately, that moniker, Beautiful Bobby, didn't last too long. But take us back. You got a unique, very unique story, John. I don't even know if you've heard this, but his training days with Billy Robinson and the Iron Sheik and that crew that went through the Minnesota mill up there at Vern Barn up there. But there's a couple of very interesting shoot stories that I like to tell that. Sorry, tell us a little bit about who was in that group you were breaking in with, and tell us, we know your dad was a roofer, I believe, and you worked in a roofing, and you knew there had to be a better way of making a living, and so you started out. So lead us through that time there, Bobby.
Okay, a friend of mine was a sports writer, and he got an assignment to do a story on a pro wrestling training camp. So he asked me if I wanted to go along and watch it because we were both big wrestling fans. We'd always go down to Minneapolis Auditorium and watch the matches.
And I'm going to jump in there. The reason that your privilege is you were a high school football star and wrestling star. So you were a great known athlete in that area. So you were friends with a sports reporter, right?
Yeah. So I'm figuring we're going to go to some, beautiful gymnasium like the WWE has down in Florida there, the big, type of atmosphere. And we ended up going out to this old barn. And so a bunch of cars were, parked outside the barn. So I walk in, I got almost a 3-piece suit on. I asked my dad, okay to take the afternoon off from the roofing? Yeah, go ahead. So I walk in and I wasn't expecting to be where I was. And I walked in and there's a couple of cows and some chickens, some ducks and bales of hay. And in the corner was a wrestling ring with a little light bulb hanging down from the ceiling. And all these guys were working out. Ric Flair, who was Ric Flair, of course. Bob Bruggers, who was one of the greatest athletes in high school history of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Jim Brunzell, Greg Gagne, Iron Sheik as Khosrow Masari, Kent Patera, and of course, Billy Robinson and Vern were training them. And they're going through all these calisthenics and running each other across the ring into the turnbuckles and crisscrossing to the ropes and all that goes with the training. So they stopped. And when the film crew got started and they did a little story, Bird says, do we have a volunteer that could come in the ring so we can show that this is all legitimate? Of course, I looked around and I'm the only one there without a camera or a notebook. So I guess that was me. So I get into the ring and so Vern starts narrating, puts me in a front face lock, trips me, lays off on top of me on my top of my back of my neck, trying to choke me out, was choking me out. So I'm tapping as hard as I can. And finally he lets me go. All right, kid, get on up. There's another move on me. I'm tapping out. Blood started to come out of my ears. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to get the hell out of here. So I go to slide out. And he goes, where are you going? I said, well, I don't see any reason staying here. He said, why not? Too tough for you? I said, no. He said, oh, it's not? I said, no. I'm just letting you put these holes on me. You're taking advantage of me. He goes, oh, is that right? We're taking advantage of you. Oh, well, why don't you step on in here and see what you can do? Get down on all fours in the wrestling position. We'll see what you got. So, I was already kind of blown up anyway. So when I heard him yell out the name Rick, I knew there was a God, because I used to wrestle Ric Flair all the time in high school. I beat him like nothing. And so when he said, Rick, you get on him, Rick goes, I got a bad shoulder, coach. And he says, don't give me that shit. Get in there. Get on him. So Rick gets down, whispers in my ear as he gets down into the position, take it easy on me, Bob. Take it easy on me. And I'm like, screw you, man. So he said, wrestle. And of course, I pinned Rick. Then that was a little an embarrassment to Vern. And so he said, well, get down again. So I got down again. He says, Ken Patera, you get on him. So Ken's a pretty strong guy just out of the Olympics. So he says, wrestle. And I escaped from Ken. We're looking at each other face to face. So I didn't know if I should, like dive him or pop him one or what to do. I was just kind of trying to survive. So he gets in between us. Vern gets in between us, and he looks over at Billy Robinson, who, Billy had one eye and he's pure black hair, and he's sitting on top of the turnbuckle. And
Billy was
yells,
one of the
hey,
trainers,
Billy.
right?
What's that?
Billy was one of the trainers then, right?
Yeah, he was one of the trainers, the British Empire heavyweight champion. And so he said, hey, Billy, what do you think about this guy? So Billy jumps down, walks around me a couple times, looks me up and down. He said, well, I think he's a C, And I don't want to say that word on here, but he said, I think he's just a C. And he's nothing but a C. You're a C, aren't you? And I said, no, sir, I'm not. He said, yeah, you are. You're a C. Now get down on all fours. Let me see what you can do against me. So I get down on all fours, and yeah, I'm more than blown up now. So I get down on all fours, and before he goes to get down in the position, he drops his shin against the back of my ankle, tries to break my leg or my foot or whatever he was trying to break. So I came up, man. First thing I thought about, my dad's going to be roofing tomorrow without me. I'm going to have a cast. I'm going to be in the hospital. So I went kind of berserk, and we went at it, and we went head pretty heavy, the mud, blood, and the beer type of story. And I was bleeding from the mouth. He was bleeding from his ear. I was trying to pull out his good eye, and we were just going at it pretty hot and heavy. And finally, Vern jumped in there and said, okay, guys, help. Let's break him apart. So I was on top of Billy when they broke us apart. That's why Vern said what he said. Get him out of here. So I go outside the barn, and here comes Vern. Hey, kid, what's your name? I said, my name's Bob. Oh, okay. Well, you're a pretty good fighter there. Where'd you learn how to fight? And I said, well, high school, wrestling, football, whatever I had to do to survive. He says, well, what's your last name? Where do you go to school? I said, Eden Prairie. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, what's your last name? I said, Remus. He goes, Remus? Is your dad Rudy Remus? I said, yeah. He said, hell, he put the roof on my house. I said, not only did he put the roof on your house, I put the roof on your house. And he said, well, I'll be damned. Well, give your dad a hello and a hug. I love him. And if you want to be a wrestler someday, you should think about coming next year when we have the camp. I can't put you in this one, even though you did pretty well. We're 10 weeks into the training camp, and I don't want to, back off. So if you're interested, keep in touch with me. I said, okay. So I went around and went back into the barn, and he runs after me. He says, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to finish what that son of a bitch tried to start. He tried to break my leg. And he said, no, you'll have plenty of him. If you want to come back into the wrestling business, you'll have plenty of that guy, Billy Robinson. I said, okay. Well, I just want to finish what he started. And so anyway, off I went, told my dad about it. He said, oh, you got to do that. I don't want you to be a roof for the rest of your life. So after I get through all the training, we had about 60 guys going through training camp. 3 of us made it. Chris Taylor from the Olympics and Paul Pershman, who was Buddy Rose. The 3 of us made it to the camp. So that's when I headed out to Vancouver as Beautiful Bobby. And so I'm in the middle of the ring about, well, let me back up a little bit. My first night, I get to the Coliseum about 3 hours early because I didn't want to be late. In my first match, professional wrestling match, and I walk in, and there's this stud sitting on the damn bench smoking a cigarette, read the book. And I recognized him. I put my bag down. I went up to go introduce myself. I said, my name's Bob Reed. And before I could get my last name out, he said, my name's Jack Briscoe. I'm the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. I said, I know who you are. He said, well, I know who you are too. I said, you know who I am? He said, anybody beat up Billy Robinson, I gotta know who they are. So I had this reputation as a shooter. I didn't even know what a shooter was. Yeah, and so it followed me, most of my life in the wrestling business. But so Jack says, you here for a while? I said, this is my first night. He said, oh, you got a car? I said, well, I got a pickup truck. He says, that's even better. You got a radio on that pickup truck of yours? I said, yeah. He said, can you get some country music on that truck of yours? I said, oh, yes, sir. He said, you mind if I ride with you? I'm here for a week. I said, it'd be an honor. So I spent my first week in the professional wrestling business driving the world heavyweight champion, Jack Briscoe, around, and he educated me real good. And it's something I'll never forget. And I wouldn't be talking to you right now if that moment hadn't happened because of what happened in that little mess with Billy Robinson. But, so lo and behold, about 2 weeks after Jack leaves on his way to some other territory, I'm in the ring, and Vern always taught us to stand in the corner with our back to our opponent. And when your name gets announced, you turn around, and especially a baby face, you turn around and you give them a high five and get that applause. So I'm waiting, I'm signing some autographs. Back then, people would come up to the ringside and get your autograph. So I'm Beautiful Bobby, the long blonde hair and all the crazy outfits. And I hear people, the fans are laughing, and I can't figure out what they're laughing about. So I look over the back of my shoulder, and I'm wrestling a guy by the name of Buck Ramstead, who was from Minnesota. And he's standing in the middle of the ring blowing me kisses. And I went, oh, no. That's not the character. That's not what Beautiful Bobby's about. I was more of the, superstar Billy Graham. That's what I wanted to be. So I annihilated poor Bob that night. When I got home, my wife said, what's wrong with you? I told her what happened. She goes, oh, no, you don't want that reputation. I said, no, I don't. She said, what are you going to do? I said, I'll take care of it. So next morning I get up, go down to in Blaine, Washington. We were living in Blaine, Washington. I find a barber shop. Cut this hair off. You sure? Yeah, cut it off. So I got it down to the normal length I always wore it. And then I went next door to the beauty shop and got it back to my normal color. And the next time I wrestled in Vancouver, Canada, or in that territory, I was Bruiser Bob. No more Beautiful Bobby.
Well, that's great. I never heard that switch. That's fun.
And then I got invited down to Portland, Oregon by Don Owens because he loved my character. He just loved the way I wrestled. And of course, when I get in there, he says, are you available after you leave Vancouver, Canada there? I said, yeah. He said, well, a friend of yours, Jack Briscoe, told me I should bring you in. I said, he did? He goes, yeah. He said, you're a damn good hand. And they always, his brother Owen always wanted to do these little shoot matches before we do our regular matches. And you'd be in the middle of the ring, and all of a sudden Elton would get on the microphone and say, $500, anybody can beat Bob Remus here, Bruiser Bob. If you can beat him in 5 minutes, you get $500. And man,
Bobby, was you ever part of any of those workshops? I heard that eventually turn into the work where the guys would split the money and everything. So were you ever part of that scheme to screw Elton Owens out of his $50?
Yeah, we would split it. We would whenever they would he started putting he stopped announcing it to the fans. He just made it between the wrestlers. He'd come up to us and go, "Hey, I want you guys to do a 5-minute shoot for the match." Okay, so we would work it, and we'd all do a deal, and we would split up the money at the end.
So when you first got down there, Sarge, did you have to take on the fans? Were you the one that got put out there in the very beginning?
Yeah. One time we were in this. I don't know where it was. I think it was Eugene, and it was like a lumberjack place. And this big man came up, and he got up on the side of that ring, and I went, "Oh my God, he's a monster." He looked like Kane, about that size. And so I went up to him. I said, "I gotta either talk him out of it or fight for my life." So I went up and I started berating him and doing all kinds of different things. And he finally backed off. He says, I don't want nothing of you. I don't want any of you. So luckily he stepped down and didn't embarrass me.
How long were you in Portland? And how long first were you in Vancouver? Then you went to, how long were you in Portland then?
I was in Vancouver for about 6 months. And then I went down, they used to do like Tuesday night, every month they do a Tuesday night special in Portland. And then I started going down there pretty steady. And that's when I flew over and met Gerald over in Japan when I was in there. And I think that was like 1975 or so, wasn't it, Gerald?
74, 75, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, 74, 75. So right before I went in there, I went to Japan first. Then I came back and moved down to Portland, Oregon. I actually lived in Vancouver, Oregon, Washington, Vancouver, Washington. And just loved it there. I always thought that I would, someday retire. My wife and I just loved it there. It rained a lot, but it was never a hard rain. It was always beautiful. And all the trips we take in Vancouver, Canada, over to
the trips, Bobby, were fantastic. I heard they were like max 125 miles. So it was like a beautiful trip, beautiful drive, and easy trip home every night.
Yeah, Sundays off. It was just great. Saturday night was only like 60 miles away. And so it was a great territory. And of course, later on, after I left, just before I was going to leave, I gave my notice and I was going to go back to Minnesota, then down to Louisiana. And Don Owens came and said, "Hey, Bob, would you be able to stay an extra week or so? I've got this young kid from Minnesota coming in, and he can't talk a lick, but he's a terror. He's unbelievable in the ring." I said, "Sure, I'll stay." So first night we team us up and we get in and we have our match, and we get up into the gorilla position, or it was called the crow's nest. That's what it was called, crow's nest. And this kid was horrible in the ring. I mean, he didn't know a hammerlock from a headlock. And so we get up to we win a match. We go up to do this promo. I said, "Hey, kid, let me take it. I'll give it to you. If you get lost, just give it back to me." Okay. So we start doing the promo. I give it to him. He blew the doors off the arena, and then he gives it back to me. I didn't know what to do with it. He did everything for me. So I get back, we get down, I go in the locker room and I said, "Don, you don't need me to talk for this guy. He's a master on, he can talk to the chrome off a bumper. You know who that guy was? Jesse Ventura.
Wow.
Jesse Ventura.
Jesse's one of the best talkers I've ever seen. I've seen him in so many different situations, from wrestling to politics to business. I mean, Jesse had a banter about him that was just unbelievable how good he was.
Yeah, yeah. He studied it. I mean, you could see his wheels were always in motion. And we used to golf together in Minneapolis, and when we worked in Minnesota territory, and he and Adrian Adonis teamed up, and they were really good together, because Adrian did all the work and Jesse just did the posing and did the talking, and together they were a great tag team and fun to work with. But they we went out to San Francisco one time for a 3 or 4 day tour from Minneapolis, and we go to have the matches, and there's no Jesse. Doesn't show up for the whole tour. Never showed up. We get back to Minneapolis, and I think it was a Wednesday. We're going to do some more promos, and here comes Jesse walking in. Looked like he hadn't slept for about a week, and he came up and he smelled like garbage. I mean, it was horrible stench. And so he Vern is hot, because he didn't show up and missed all his matches, and so he's not talking to him. So I said, Jesse, what the hell happened to you? He said, come here, Sarge, I gotta tell you. He said, I got out to San Francisco, I got off the damn plane, and a bunch of my Navy SEAL buddies were waiting for me, and we went out and partied. And he said, I woke up in a damn dumpster. I woke up in a dumpster 2 days ago, and here I am. He says, I don't know what happened.
That's great.
He was
have you been in a dumpster recently?
What's that?
I was asking Jared Briscoe if he's been in a dumpster recently.
Oh yeah.
Matter of fact, I can tell you the last time I was in a dumpster. Wasn't long ago. Last time I was in a dumpster, I was in the dumpster with Vince McMahon waiting for Terry Funk and Mick Foley to push us off the stage on some pay-per-view. And
yeah,
that's right.
Down.
That's right.
Yeah. But then I just kind of wandered around and left Portland, Oregon, and got to back to Minneapolis. Went down to Louisiana and teamed up with a fellow by the name of Pat Song, and didn't speak much English, but we were a good
big Korean guy, had a head on him a foot long.
Oh yeah, and
what a heat seeker he was down here in Florida, Bobby.
Oh yeah. But he and I were teamed up, and we wrestled a lot with Tony Atlas and Tommy Wildfire Rich. And man, could they get the people going? And we just enjoyed working with them. Not much communication with Pat Song, but he just followed us. He knew exactly what to do. And then I got a call that my mother was sick, so I had to go back home. I left the titles in the trunk of my car at the airport. I flew back home, and she ended up getting cancer. So I had to call Bill Watts, tell him I had to stop, not be in his territory, because my mother was sick, and my dad wanted me to, he took it pretty hard, wanted me to run the roofing business again. So I said, not a problem. So I quit the wrestling business and went back to the roofing business for about 2 years. And that's kind of when I stepped back into wrestling. Was about 2 years later. I came home from a job, a roofing job, and it was pouring rain. So as they say, when the rains come, the roofers went home. So I walk into the damn house. I soaking wet. I said, well, I'll see what's on the tube. So I turn on this black and white TV we had. And as soon as I turn it on, I hear the Marine Corps hymn. Da, 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 da. And I stopped and I looked and I started watching it. And it was called the DI, and it starred Jack Webb. And that son of a gun was the meanest little SOB. And I started watching it, and I said, my God, he's doing all of this and not saying one profanity, And in the military, especially boot camp, every other word's the F word or the C word, But he's saying all these things and getting, these guys hating him. And I said, would that be a great character for a wrestler, a good villain? So I couldn't wait for my wife to get home. I got a Polaroid camera, got a campaign cover, some sunglasses and a whistle and cigar, riding crop and a swagger stick. And I had her take pictures. So the next day it's raining again. So I run down to Minneapolis wrestling office to show Vern Gagne my new idea. So he goes, well, he wasn't in. So I walk in and Wally Carbo was there. I don't know if any of you know who Wally Carbo was, but he was like Vern's right-hand man. So I walk in, he said, hey, Bob, how's your mom doing? I said, good, yeah. Well, can you get back to wrestling pretty soon? I said, I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, I got this idea for a new character, and I wanted to run it by Vern. He said, you going to be back? Well, he's probably out for the day, but what's your idea? So I started telling him about it. And he goes, well, kid, I don't think I'd go much further than that because, they've had G.I. Joe and they've had this guy and that guy and the military and, and it just never really worked too well. I said, oh, okay, well, it was worth a try. So I go to leave and I go to the elevator and the elevator opens up and there's Vern Gagne. He said, hey, Bob, how's it going? How's your mom? Oh, everything? Yeah, okay. What are you doing here? So I had this idea for a villain and I run it by you, but Wally didn't think it was a good idea. Well, don't always believe what Wally says. Come on in and show it to me. So I go in and he's answering calls. And finally, about an hour, I'm sitting there and he goes, okay, tell me your idea of this villain. So I started going through the Sgt Slaughter, character. And I even had my name picked out, Sgt Slaughter. So I start doing this promo to him and he jumps up behind his desk and he starts doing the promo for me. And he starts yelling at me like I'm a private, in boot camp. And he finally gets done. He goes, that's the greatest idea I've heard in a long time. He said, I hated my drill instructor. What a great idea. What, can you start? I mean, he said, I don't want you to start here, but can you go somewhere and do it? I said, well, I really don't know what I can do. So, well, let me know. So I go home, I tell my dad about it. He said, well, yeah, mom's doing okay. Just give Vern a call, see what he's got in mind. So Vern says, I talked to Bob Geigel and Harley Race. Harley just lost the title and he's working full-time now in Kansas City and they're looking for some villains. Can you go down there? I said, yeah, I'll go down. So I head down to Kansas City and, we're there for 3 hours of taping of the wrestling show. And pretty soon, Bob Geigel and Pat O'Connor come up to me and they said, can you do a promo for us? The show's over. We're just going to tape it and look at it later. I said, sure, I'll do it. So I start doing the promo. I get done, and here comes Harley Race walking over to me. And Harley, being in the military, always smoked his cigarettes with his hand covering the cigarette. And it burnt the inside of his hand. That's how tough he was. He had a big callus inside of his hand where his cigarette would burn his hand. And he said, kid, that's pretty damn good. He said, when can you start? I said, well, I get it. I just came down here to do a promo. I don't know when I can get down. He said, well, make sure it's soon. He said, because he looks over at Guy going, O'Connor goes, hey, I want to be married to that guy. And you know what that means in our business, being married to somebody means you're working every night with them. So I finally work it out where I go down to Kansas City and that's where I started Sgt Slaughter in 1976. And every night I worked with Harley Race or Bob Brown.
Wow.
And Bob Brown, I know a lot of people know Bob Brown, but what a talent he was. I mean, just a bump taker went all over the place. And people loved him because he had a little short crew cut and little chubby little guy, but people just loved him. And so I worked between him and Harley. Then pretty soon Harley got out of the program he was in, but I think it was DiBiase or someone. And he said, Kid, you ready? I said, ready for what? He goes, ready to make some money? I said, yeah, I'm ready. So we started out 1 hour to a draw in St. Joe, Missouri. And we went every night, 1 hour draw. Go back to St. Joe, 90 minutes, 90-minute draw. Go around the territory, 90 minutes every night. Next night, 2 hours, 2 hour draw. I mean, talk about getting in shape in a hurry and learning from the greatest general that I think ever set foot in a squared circle was Harley Race. And I'm hearing this every night. I mean, he's telling me. Then finally it got to the point where no time limit, but you know, Harley would go like 40, 45 minutes and that would be the end of the match. But he would then from that point on, whenever we would get into a match, he'd go, you called it, kid. Wow, I got to call the match for Harley Race. Oh my God. Talk about learning your stuff in a hurry and learning it from the best that ever lived. I would, you know, again, another thing that Jack Briscoe saved my pretty much my career by giving me the best advice of not giving up. Just, you know, you'll find your character. He was too wild about beautiful Bobby. So he was very nicely telling me, you'll get it, you'll find it, but don't give up on it. And now I got Harley Race telling me, you know, call the match, kid. You call the match for 1 hour. I mean, holy cow, where do you get that? I mean, unbelievable what I was, you know, put into and how I survived through it and how I gained so much of that, you know.
Sarge, did you realize at that time you're working with a former NWA champion, one of the greatest of all time, and he was recognized at that time as one of the greatest of all time, and you're going an hour with him? Did you realize then that I'm going to make it in the business?
Yeah, I do it. I actually knew it pretty much in Portland, Oregon, because I was in cage matches. I went over to Japan and I was in cage matches and all kinds of matches that we had over there. And I survived it and I enjoyed it. I loved it and I studied it and I wanted to make it better every night. You know, in Japan, when you do something really good and crazy, they want you to do it every night. So you do it. You have to do it. They want you to do it. So, but the language barrier, just to like Pat's song, you know, I couldn't understand the Japanese. They could pretty much understand me, but you know, you just went with the flow of what was natural, what was good, what was bad.
And a lot of people don't understand the effort of going into those hour matches, those 90-minute matches. And you're a big guy, and then Harley's a big guy, and there's a lot of weight out there. I know you were always in condition. What was your cardio routine? But you wasn't one of those gym rats where you go in and look like a Jesse the Body or Superstar Billy Graham. You was more of a big, tough, burly guy that had the endurance of a middleweight. So, what did you do? A lot of cardio back then, or what?
Yeah, I did a lot of running. I ran a lot. I didn't hardly ever work out with weights. I was big enough.
Yeah, you're big.
Yeah, I didn't. You know, when I first heard about steroids, I didn't know what the hell they were. I didn't know how they took them. I thought, was it a pill? I didn't realize you put it in your arm with a knee light. I mean, God knows I'm not going to do something crazy like that. And so I was just, when I was a young boy, I lived on a golf course. We woke up one morning and these bulldozers were tearing down the woods next to us, and they made this golf course. So I would get up in the morning and barefooted, and I would just run. It was such a beautiful run because there was beauty, flowers, green, and the trees, and it was just fun to run. And I just got into the habit of running, and I never went to the gym much. You know, I did the push-up blocks, and basically it's all I did for working out. To me, I just didn't have the time. I have to take my hat off to the talent that look like they do because they go to the gym. That's a big effort. That's a lot of time and dedication to, you know, your diet and all those things. I mean, the Warrior, the Ultimate Puke, and Hogan, and all those guys that had those beautiful bodies. That didn't come easy. I mean, and then to, you know, travel and do all the things that we did in their diet, you know, how they did. I mean, I really give them a salute to how hard they worked to look like that. But I just I was naturally big. My regiment was Wheaties. I ate a bowl of Wheaties every night from when I was just a baby in a crib. My mother, I went to a family reunion one time. I was 15 years old and I towered above everybody. And we got home and I said, "Mom, can I ask you a question?" "Yeah." "How come I'm so much bigger than everybody else? Grandpa and uncles and my cousins?" And she said, "Well, I'll tell you why you're so much bigger. When you were a little baby out of the farm, you would make a fuss and I would get up and put you in the high chair. I'd put a bowl of Cheerios and some Wheaties and some fruits and stuff, and you just kind of pushed everything away. But one night, you grabbed that bowl of Wheaties and you pushed it back to you, and you took a bite of it, and you ate the whole damn bowl." And she said, "You slept till 10 o'clock the next morning." She said, "So I got smart." She said, "You like the mushy Wheaties. You didn't like crispy Wheaties. You wanted the mushy ones." So she said, "I would put a bowl of Wheaties in the refrigerator with some milk on, a little sugar. And as soon as you make a fuss, I put you in." She said, "Then I even got smarter. I gave it to you before I put you to bed." So she said, "That's why you're so much bigger than everybody else, because you ate Wheaties." And Gerald and JBL, I still eat them today.
That is the breakfast
not
of
every
champions, you know. Breakfast of champions.
Yeah, not every night that I do.
Hell,
I eat
Sarge,
them,
you got a commercial right there and don't even know it, man.
Yeah, well, we tried. We tried that. When to move farther ahead, when I was in G.I. Joe, my cousin was kind of like my agent. So we're talking about how, you know, I even got him on Wheaties when he was a young boy, come over to my house out to the farm, and we'd always have Wheaties before we go to bed. So we started talking about it. I said, "Wouldn't it be cool if we went to General Mills and offered them a commercial idea where you got this huge high chair and you start to film out on a pair of combat boots and you work up to the fatigues, the camouflage fatigues, and pretty soon you're up and there I am with a big spoon in my hand with a big bowl, and I have eaten Wheaties, and I go, 'Wheaties, breakfast of champions.'" And so we laughed about it, make a joke out of it. So, you know, General Mills is in Minnesota. So 2 weeks down the road, he calls me up. "Guess what, Bobby? I talked to General Mills." "What do you mean you talked to General?" "I told them your idea. And they would love to do it, but they only do amateurs. They only do amateurs. I said, oh, well, thanks for trying. So, okay. About 2 weeks later, he calls me back. Guess what? They decided, they had a big meeting. You're going to be the first professional athlete to be on a Wheaties box. I said, I am? He goes, yeah. Oh, let me call Hasbro. Hey, guess what, Hasbro? I'm going to be in the first box of Wheaties for athletes. I mean, for professional athletes. And they said, oh, that's great, Sarge, but we can't let you do it. Why not? Well, we're coming out with our own cereal called Ralston's G.I. Joe Stars, and you're going to be the third one. First, we're going to have General Hawk, then Duke, and then you. So, sorry. So we had to call General Mills. I never did get on the first G.I. Joe Stars didn't sell because they put the wrong guy on first.
Well, Sarge, was Harley
never got to do it.
Was Harley right? Was that the first time you made big money in Kansas City? Did the money go
yeah.
with Harley?
I made pretty good money, as far as the territories like Portland. It all depended on who paid you. Like Don Owens was a good payoff guy, and he always paid you for what he thought you were worth, and not just what they did that night. And the Minneapolis territory again was like Portland. You're home. You only worked in the wintertime about maybe 16, 17 times a month, and in the summer you worked maybe 10 times a month. But you get paid well, and you're always home every night, just about every night. So that was a part of the education of learning how to take the money that you earned and put it in the bank and not spend it, going out partying, and it was tough. It was tough, and we all like to go out and have a good time, but it was an education on how to, because Harley and Jack, of course, Briscoe always put it in my ear. It's not what you make, it's what you save. And I said, oh, thank you. I never quite understood that till I got deeper into the business. Not how much you make, it's how much you save. And so they were key to my success and my where I'm at today.
Where at that point did you go back to Minnesota before you went to work for Vince Sr.? That was the progression.
Yeah. I was actually my mother got sick again, and this time she was on her death bed. So I quit the business again and what took care of the roofing business. And so one day Vern Gagne calls me and says, hey, I got an opportunity to send you to Hawaii for Ed Francis. Can you go? It's a 6-week tour. He said, I really think you would do well over there. They need a masked man. And I said, geez, I never wrestled under a mask. He says, well, it's pretty much the same. So I said, well, let me talk to my dad. So my mother says, oh yeah, I'm fine. Go to Hawaii. So I tell Vern, yeah, I'm going to go. So I head over. I'm the executioner in Hawaii. And every night, it was a blessing. Rick Martel was my opponent. How much better could you have? But Rick Martel is your opponent every night. And so for 6 weeks, I wrestled under this mask as the executioner. So I come back to Minnesota, and I get a call, Vern Gagne. Hey, what's this? I hear you're the greatest masked wrestler of all time. I said, well, I don't know about that. He said, well, that's what Ed Francis told me. And he's seen a lot of them. He said, I got a guy here by the name of Don Jardine, and I don't like him. He don't like me. He's a super destroyer. I said, I know who you're talking about. He said, he's a stud. And he said, well, he's a stud, but he won't do business. He won't do good business. So I want to get rid of him. I was wondering if you would take his place. Take his place? What do you mean? Well, I want to fire him, and I want you to be the super destroyer. I said, geez, I don't know. Let me talk to my dad. You know? So everything was always going through my dad, my mother, because of her health. So, yeah. How, when are you going to be on the road? So I called her. Maybe I can do it. He said, well, I've got an 8-passenger plane. If I can get you home every night, can you do it? Let me talk to my dad. So yeah, he said he can get me home if he can get you home every night, you can go. So I would get up early, 0400, go to the roofing job, get the crew started. You know, we did a lot of hot asphalt roofing at that time. And about 2 or 3 o'clock, we'd head out to the Flying Cloud Airport there in Eden Prairie, beat the guys, and we would fly to the towns, and we would come back that same night. And it wasn't every night, so it wasn't real bad, but it was tiring, you know. So here my first night, I'm going to replace Don Jardine. He was in Winnipeg, Canada, and Nick Bockwinkel and myself and Angelo Mosca are a 6-man team against Vern Gagne, Billy Robinson, and I think it was Mad Dog Vachon or something like that. So I get into the locker room, and Vern takes me over, introduces me to everybody. Hey, this is Bob Remus. He's going to be Super Destroyer. And Alfred Hayes was Don Jardine's manager, Super Destroyer's manager. And this didn't go over too well when Vern fired Don, because Don was like kind of like the Steve Austin, you know, he didn't take shit from nobody, and you don't tell him what to do, especially if you're the promoter and this and that. But in real life, I mean, if he didn't want to take that mask off, he wasn't taking it off. So
a very unique character.
Yeah, and he was a tough as nails kind of guy, and the guys respected him. And so here I come waltzing in to Winnipeg, Canada. The place is sold out. I mean, I didn't do nothing, had nothing to do with it. So I get this funny looking mask, and Vern says, well, we can't just call him the Super Destroyer because they'll know it's not the same guy. Well, what should we call him? And Lord Alfred Hayes looks at me and goes, why don't we call him the Super Destroyer Mark II? And he was making a joke of it because he loved Don Jardine. They were roommates. They shared an apartment together. And so he wasn't real happy with me being there. So I didn't realize the politics back then. I was just there to make a living and do what Vern wanted me to do. So finally they said, well, where's he going to be from? Well, how about Gibraltar? You know, there's no such, it's just a big rock out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm from Gibraltar. I'm Super Destroyer Mark II. So, okay, let's go out and have the match. So lo and behold, I don't know what happened that night, but we blew the roof off the place. And we got back, and all the guys were like, man, you're pretty good. You're pretty good, kid. You're pretty good. You're pretty good. Well, thank you. You know, and I'm humbled, very humbled. I, wasn't a big rah. So after a couple of weeks and meeting, Pat Patterson and Ray Stevens and Nick Bockwinkel and Bobby Heenan, and we all became a family. It was, and Louis Dendero, Pat's partner, and we all just Bob Orton Jr. And we were just all a family, and we went golfing and we did all skiing and all kinds of stuff, and we just had a great time. So it was time for Pat to leave. Pat was going to New York. So as he's getting ready to go to New York to start doing some promos to start his his work there, I said to his partner, Louis, I said, do you think Pat would take these photos to Vince McMahon Sr. for me to show him? And he goes, well, let me see him. He said, who's this? Who's this Matthew? I became Matthew because whenever I would check in at a hotel wearing the mask, it was very kayfabe. Vern Gagne was very kayfabe. You had to wear your mask everywhere, except for like in a hotel, at a restaurant like that. But everywhere else, I used to have masks made so I could eat because they would be wide open. Because I had to have it on 24/7. So we, when I check into a hotel, I check in as Matt Burns, M-A-T Burns, B-U-R-N-S. That's a rip. That's a joke. So, well, Lord Alfred Hayes, who speaks the perfect English, who I became godly, God rest his soul. He and I became just like that over the time I was there. And he always used the perfect Queen's English, and he'd say, Matthew. He'd never say Matt. He wouldn't call you Jerry. He'd say Gerald. Pat was Patrick, and, Lewis, and Raymond was, it was always the long name. So anyway, Matthew was my name. So Louis says, Matthew, who is this? It was pictures of Sgt Slaughter, And he said, this is you? I said, yeah. He said, I've only known you as Super Destroyer Mark II. I said, well, this is a character I started in Kansas City in 1975, 76. He says, oh, I'll give him to Pat. So Pat goes off, comes back. About a week later, I get a call. Robert Remus? Yes. Is this Sgt Slaughter? Yes. This is Vince McMahon Sr. Uh-huh. Yeah. Who is this? It's Vince McMahon Sr., WWF. I said, I received some photos of you as Sgt Slaughter from Pat Patterson, and I'd like you to come in and do a trial, a promo. And I said, well, yeah, I could do that. He said, when can you come? I said, when you need me. So Allentown, Pennsylvania, I go in, and I'm there, as the usual, 3 tapings, and they'd seen everything. So finally, it's time for me to go out and do my thing. So he says, okay, he used to call me Sergeant. Sergeant, it's time for you to go out. I want you to go do a promo with my son. And I said, well, which one is he? Huh. and he goes, he's the one with the manicured hair. He pays $300 for a damn haircut. Can you believe that?
The Little Richard hairstyle he had back.
Yeah. So he had this big, do. And he says, that's him there. He's the taller guy with the big, pretty hair. I said, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll go out there. So he says, yeah, and Vince Sr. always had 4 quarters. He'd always jiggle them. It was like a nervous thing for him. And he'd walk around. You always knew when he was around because you'd hear these quarters. So he says, is there anything I can do to help set up your promo with my son? And I said, yeah. So I reached down and I take a cassette tape out of my bag. And I said, could you play this? And he said, well, what is it? I said, it's a Marine Corps hymn. He goes, well, what do you want me to do with it? I said, is there any way to play it in the arena when I go out? He goes, music? You want me to play music when you go out? I said, yeah, it's a Marine Corps. He said, I'll be right back. So he goes into the production truck, and Kevin Dunn's father was the head production guy there then. And here comes Vince back. He goes, and he's got his chest out like he discovered something. And he goes, yeah, they're going to play it. They're going to play the Marine Corps hymn for you. I said, oh, okay, great. So he says, are you ready? I said, yeah. So I get my I'm all ready. Combat boots on, fatigues, got the whistle, the riding crop, the swagger stick. I got my campaign cover on, the sunglasses, and I grabbed my cigar. So he says, okay, whenever they're ready, when the music hits, you go. I said, okay. So all of a sudden it's da, 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 da. And the people dead silent. And I said, well, that went over real well. So as I go to walk out, he puts his arm across my path, and he puts his hand up, stop. And then he starts jingling those quarters again, and he's listening. He's trying to hear the reaction of the crowd. Well, finally, they start murmuring, or they're getting louder and louder. So finally, he shoves me out the curtain. He goes, "Go get him, kid." So I walk out just like Jack Webb in the DI. I blow that damn whistle, and I call people maggots and scums and slimes and pukes, and stand up and salute the sergeant. By the time I get halfway to Vince, they're coming over the barriers that want to kill me. They don't even know who I am. And so they're like, who's he talking to? Who's he calling a maggot? So finally I get up to Vince, and Vince is like standing there all proud, flexed up. And so he goes, well, what do we have here? And I went right into his face. I said, shut your hole, puke. Who gave you permission to speak? And the saliva is flying out of my mouth all over. You know how he is with germs. He got that like, and so I finally move around him, and I start telling him all kinds of names. And finally I get my swagger stick, and I take my whistle and I blow it right in his ear, and he's like, son of a bitch. And he's not saying that. Every time he tries to say something, I say, shut your hole, puke. I'll tell you when it's time to speak. And so I just berated him. So finally I take my swagger stick and I start ruffling up his hair above his ear, and his shoulder starts going up like, cut that out, stop that, And so I get right into his ear. I said, who cut your hair, Ray Charles? And he just kind of like looked at me like, who the hell are you talking to? So finally we do the promo, we get all done, and I dismiss him. I go to walk away, and he's saying something on the microphone about me. Yeah, that's Sgt Slaughter. And I said, well, what the hell? I'll put a little icing on the cake. I take a big drag out of my cigar. I turn around, and he's not looking. I go right in front of him, and I go right in his face. And he starts turning purple and green and red, and he's like shaking, he's quivering. I didn't realize he doesn't like smoke. I didn't. Nobody told me anything. I didn't know anything about it. So he's like, so I make my way back, and I'm fighting people off. Nobody knows who I am. They're fighting me. So I get back in, and all the guys that are still at the in the locker room, they're kind of like, that poor guy, he got fired before he gets started. And so I'm sitting there, taking off one of my combat boots, and I'm going to take the next one off, and I hear the quarters clink, 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 and I'm looking down at my boot, and I see Vince's loafers, high dollar loafers walking around my chair 3-4 times. Finally, they stop in front of me. So I look up, and I'm looking at him. He's like shaking his head. Not a very nice look on his face, shaking his head. And he goes, and points for me to follow him. So he strolls and goes over to this back closet somewhere and turns on the light, and quarters are going again, walks around me 2 or 3 more times, stops right in front of me, goes, that's the greatest character I've ever seen in my life. That's the greatest villain I've ever seen in my life. Even my son hates you. When can you start? I said, well, I'm still up in Minneapolis as a Super Destroyer Mark II. He goes, well, don't worry about it. I'll have gags. Everybody called Virginia gags. I'll tell gags, you got to be here. So that's basically how I got into the New York territory in Allentown, Pennsylvania, by doing a promo with our boss of today, our God. Oh, thank you. But they'll put all fun aside. we wouldn't be doing this right now. We wouldn't be going out signing autographs if Vince hadn't taken the dive and make the business what it is today. I mean, he really is kind of the reason why we're going out doing autograph sessions and making extra money on the side. And he really could come down on us if he wanted to and stop us all and say, I own all this. You guys just paying me a little bit, But he's a good guy. Good guy.
What is the difference, Sarge, between you worked for Vince Sr. a lot and you worked for Vince Jr. probably a lot more? You worked for both extensively. What was the difference between the two?
Well, I think one of them had a heart.
We won't ask you which one.
Don't ask me which one. No, they were both, cut a lot on the same cloth. I traveled a lot with Vince Sr. and we went out to dinner a lot with Arnie Skolin and Andre and of course Vinny. Oh, he called him Vinny all the time. And but I talked to, just like I'll go back to Jack Briscoe and Harley and Mr. McMahon Sr. and Pat Patterson. I absorbed all that, and I always listened to those people. They were the professionals of my generation. And Vince Sr. was a very soft-spoken guy, and he knew what he wanted. And he would have Arnold Skolin there to carry out his wishes, tell the boys without having to tell them face to face. But he would tell me stories about, he said, when I had competition, he said, I would pay kids 10 cents to go out and bring me back as many posters on the telephone poles in the stores that they could carry. He said that I would have them bring me all those posters and things, And he said that was a way of me, fighting my competition because they didn't know they were in town. He would send kids out to the next town that he was going to and take all the posters out of the town before the 2 weeks before he came. So, but he was just a real gentleman. He always enjoyed having a good time, especially especially if it was successful. And he knew who his cream of the crop were. And he came to me with almost like his heart in his hand. And he said, Sergeant, I'm going to have to let you go. And I said, really? Did I do something wrong? He said, no. You've been here 7-8 months, and I don't want you to get overexposed this first run. So I want you to go somewhere for another year or so. So I said, really? And he says, yeah, that's the way I run the business. I don't want, he said, in my area, my territory, I feed my baby face, my Bob Backlund, my Bruno Sammartinos, I feed them all the villains, but I don't want I just want to feed you a little bit to them, but I don't want them to eat you alive. So I want you to go for a while. Okay, I'll go. So I go down to Charlotte, and I do some great business down there. I run into a kid I ran into in Atlanta before my mother got sick, and I had to quit the business. Don Colonel, and Don was one of those guys that first match put on a hell of a show, kissed the babies, hugged the grandmas, shook hands with everybody around the ring. And I got to thinking, geez, maybe if I got a private, I could get more heat on myself if I take somebody that they really love and make him into a monster, and they'll even hate me more, So we were in Columbia, South Carolina, and I sent word over with the referee, tell Don Trinodal to come over after his match. I'd like to talk to him. So Don comes over, one of the better performers, not only professionally, but he was a shooter too, an arm wrestler. I mean, whew, nobody could beat Don. So I gave this idea. I want to take someone like you, your character that's wholesome, everybody loves you. I want to make you my private, and I want you to be a villain. And he goes, oh, geez, I don't know. You think it'll work? I said, what the hell? Give it some thought. So he said, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm tired of being the first match. He said, I don't want to be the first match all the time. I said, well, if you don't want to be the first match, jump on board. So we get together a couple of days later. I said, okay, Don, you got to go get your head shaved. What? My head shaved? He was real pripper and proper about his hair. I said, yeah, I got to tell you to go get a buzz cut. You got to go do it. You're private. I'm the DI. I'm the sergeant. Oh, okay. So he goes, gets his haircut, comes back, and it's shorter, but not buzz. I said, Don, that's not buzz. You got to have the buzz cut. I'll go with you. Oh, well, So anyway, he does it. So I put him into fatigues, and I got to think of I got to have something else. So I looked in the paper because people are just, I was the United States heavyweight champion at that time. And people were hating me, and they were destroying my cars. And so I said, I got to get a different car. So I start looking into the newspaper, and I see this 73 Cadillac Fleetwood limo. I said, a limo. So I called the guy. He said, yeah, it's still available. I said, how much you want for it? He says, well, I don't know. How about $2,000? I said, $2,000? Don't sell that thing till I get there. So I drive out, and it's a funeral home. I get to this funeral home, and there's this beautiful Fleetwood 73 Cadillac. Not a thing wrong with it. He had to replace it because it was getting old, and he didn't want it to break down in a funeral procession. So he said, I got to upgrade it. So I'm going to sell this. I said, 2,000, still the price. He said, well, how about 1,000? I said, I'll take it. So I take it, and I take it to a friend of mine who owns a body shop in Charlotte. I said, can you camouflage this? He goes, I can do anything. I can camouflage your forehead if you want me to. I said, well, camouflage this and let me know when it's done. So I go, and I can't believe it when I pull up. It is immaculate. It's just, and it's done in the lead paint that the military uses, because he was in the military and he was at a base there. So I take it, and I grab Colonel, and I said, let's go over to the wrestling office. So we drive over to the wrestling office, and I go in, and I said, Jimmy Crockett and Ole Anderson, come here, I got to show you something. I got another member of my family. And they're like, what? So we go out the back door, and there's this camouflage limo. And Jimmy Crockett's eyes get like saucers. He goes, what in the hell? And Ole Anderson says, what are you wasting your money on that for? Why did you do that? That's a perfectly good car. I said, Ole, this is going to make me more money than you can ever believe. I said, that's a character in itself. He goes, oh, Jesus. And he walks back in. Well, those people, they beat the hell out of that car, but I didn't care. It became a graffiti board because it was lead paint. You could just take your fingernail and write. So I finally had to get it taken to another guy and completely sanded down, and an enamel camouflage paint on there. So up and down the highways we went, and to draw some attention, that's like putting the bullseye on the back of my
if you would have brought it to Briscoe Brothers the first time, you wouldn't have had to go for that damn second paint job.
Let it shark get an arm and a leg.
It would have been worth the drive.
Jerry, what was
but that's how the camouflage limo came to be. And so we ended up Jimmy Crockett said, Sarge, I want you and Chernobyl to team up and go against Steamboat and Youngblood. And I'm going to send you to Japan. You're going to come back with the World Tag Team Championships. I said, you are? He goes, yeah. So next thing I know, we're the World Heavyweight Champions, and we're in all these matches with Steamboat and Youngblood. I mean, how much better could I have it? I mean, it was just crazy. And, we worked with you and Jack, and they worked with you guys. And, I mean, it was just a great territory. We had Piper there, Valentine, Flair in and out, and Blackjack Mulligan, and Wahoo McDaniels.
Roddy Piper, Don Morocco. That territory was loaded then.
Oh man, the first match was Pedro Morales.
Yeah.
That's how much talent they had. Pedro Morales was the opening match. But anyway, long story short, we did some phenomenal business, and we go to Greensboro Coliseum. I told Jimmy, I said, we didn't have pay-per-view back then. I said, Jimmy, you got to get a closed circuit because we're going to sell this damn building out. We need to have an overflow. Oh, I don't know, sir. The advance isn't that good. I said, they don't have advances here, Jimmy. We call them advances. They don't do advances. People don't spend their money till they get there. Well, I don't know. So anyways, another long story short, they estimated that 17,000 cars, not people, 17,000 cars, the North Carolina State Patrol said got turned away. And they kept putting on the radio, if you don't have tickets, don't go. And everything was like back and forth. I got it was about 8:30, and I'm still a mile away from the Coliseum. I can't get there. The traffic's so bad. So I finally pull over to 7-Eleven at the bottom of the hill there at the Coliseum. And I said to the guy, can I leave my car here for a couple of minutes? I got to get to the matches. He says, yeah, go ahead. So I run up and I got a kid to go down and get my car. And we had 5 matches on that card. Piper worked with somebody, and Flair and Valentine were supposedly the main event for the title. And Flair came to Jimmy Crockett and I and said, Jimmy, do you mind if I go on before the cage match? He said, I'll never be able to follow that. And I went, wait a minute, you're Ric Flair and you're telling me you can't follow my match, our match? He said, Sarge, ain't no way I can follow that with Valentine. Not that. So we had this cage match, and it was an incredible sight to see. So now it's time to move on. So we go to Jimmy's office, and Jimmy wants to make me the booker and John the booker, because he let us run our own program. Dory Funk Jr. was the booker at that time. And Dory Funk came to me and goes, Sarge, whatever you guys want to do, you go ahead and do it. And to this day, when I see Dory, he goes, that was the easiest thing I ever had to do in my life. All I did was sit back and take all the glory. He said, you guys did all the work. So it was time for us to move on to another opponent. So we're talking about being bookers, and then Jimmy Crockett in his office, Don and Chernobyl and I are sitting there, and he goes, I got an idea. I'm going to put Jack and Jerry up against Steamboat and Youngblood because they're the new champions. And I said, oh, okay. And I'm going to put you against Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, and Bugsy McGraw. And I didn't quite laugh in his face at that point, but I just kind of gave him a look. And I looked at Don, and Don looks at me, and Jimmy Crockett looks at us again. He goes, well, what do you think, Sarge? And I looked at Don, and I said, I think it's time for me to go back to New York. And Jimmy Crockett started getting like Vince was, turned colors. He said, "What do you mean go back to New York? This is hot. You're hot." I said, "I'm not working with Bugsy McGraw and Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man Valiant. They're great guys, but that's not my cup of tea." So I'm going to officially give you my notes. So I call up Vince Sr. He's still running the company. "Can I come back?" "Yeah, come on back. Come on back." So the first night we go to Allentown. People hated me more than when I left. And we go out, have the dinner and some drinks at the bar. So he says, "Sergeant, it is so good to have you back. It is so good to have you back. I'm so happy that you're back. You are the greatest villain of all time. Greatest villain of all time." And I said, "Well, Mr. McMahon, if you think I'm a great villain, you ought to see me as a hero." And he went, "What? Sergeant Slaughter, a hero? What are you talking about? You could never be a hero. You're a drill instructor, a Marine drill instructor. You could never be a hero." I said, "Well, here's my plan. Here's my thought. You got the Iron Sheik here. You got Ayatollah Khomeini, the hostage situation, Black Hawk's down, the murder of the Marines at the embassy." I went through the whole thing. And I said, "You know what, Mr. McMahon, we never got to punch Ayatollah Khomeini right in the nose. He got away with all that. Why don't you let Sergeant Slaughter go after the Iron Sheik for America?" And it gave me goosebumps. And he's just like, "Yeah, yeah. Oh, no. You almost had me. No, Sergeant, you can never be a hero. You can never." And I look over his shoulder. Vince is our boss today. He's getting ready to take over the company. And he's going, yeah. And if Vince Sr. turns around, "Vinny, don't you turn the sergeant into a hero. Don't you do it. He's the best villain you ever will have. Don't you do it." "Okay, Pops, it's time for us to go." So 2 weeks later, we're doing Allentown again, or 3 weeks later. We go through the first hour. I wrestle. People hate me. Boo, boo, boo. The Iron Sheik goes out and does a promo with Ayatollah Blasi. Next hour, I'm not even supposed to be on the show. So I'm taking my stuff off. So here comes Vince. He said, "Sarge, are you ready?" I said, "Ready? What do you mean? Ready for what?" "To do what you talked about last 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, at the bar, to be a hero." I said, "Now? Right now. Right now." He said, "I'm not going to tell the Iron Sheik. I'm not going to tell Blasi. I'm not telling my dad. I'm not telling anybody. The only people who are going to know about it is the director and me and you. That we're the only three that are going to know." Kind of sounds familiar, right? Montreal Screwjob. But anyway, so I said, you're serious?" He goes, "Yeah, I got to go back. We got to do this." He said, "I'm going to have the Sheik go out and have a match with Eddie Gilbert, and I'm going to have him destroy it. And when they're getting him on the gurney and stuff, I'm going to have him push it off and blah, blah. And here you jump. But let the Sheik start doing his thing first. Let him start spieling, USA, spit and all that." I said, "Okay, whatever." And as he turns to go away, he turns back and he comes right into my face. And he goes, "And give me your best General Patton promo." And I went, "In 5 minutes, you want me to do all this? What are you doing?" Yeah. So he said, and he turned back, he said, "Element of surprise, element of surprise." And I said, "Element of surprise. Okay. Yeah, you're right. It's going to be a surprise." So our Sheik goes out, beats up poor Eddie Gilbert, tips him over on that damn gurney, gets that microphone, "The USA Cup," and all of a sudden the Marine Corps hits. And I'm like, I don't even have my campaign cover. It's gone. They had brought it back, but I don't know where they put it. So I grab a camouflage cap, baseball cap, and I head out the damn curtain. And the people, before I go out, I look at the monitor and I see Blasi and Iron Sheik, kind of like, and I could read Fred Blassie's lips. He goes, wrong music, wrong music. You know, they're playing the Marine Corps hymn for the Iron Sheik, he thought. So all of a sudden, here I come, and I got the whistle and my riding crop and the swagger stick, and people were like, they went silent, and all of a sudden they started building it up. It was just like louder, louder, louder. And I come out, and Blassie, being the smart pro, veteran that he was, he knew something was up. So he gets in between us and doesn't let us really do any confrontation. But we kind of, mouth off at each other. And finally, I get in the ring, see how Eddie's doing, and the Sheik leaves with Blassie. So I see that Eddie's okay. They get him out of there, and I grabbed that microphone and I did my general patent, promo. Iron Sheik, you want to spit on the ground my mother's buried in? You no good, maggot, all these kinds of words. Finally, I said, I declare war on you, Iron Sheik. I declare war on Iran. The United States, we declare war on you, and those people started rumbling. I mean, they were just, whoa. I thought, well, here I go. This is all I live, So I put my hand on my heart. I said, there's one thing I've done since I was a young boy in school, in the Cub Scouts, and in the Boy Scouts, and the Marine Corps, and wherever I could do it. I put my hand on my heart and I started doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Well, I'm telling you, I don't know if you ever seen it, but those people jumped up on their chairs. They got their lighters in their hands, and they're doing the Pledge of Allegiance with me. And it was the most incredible thing that I have ever been involved in, to change from a villain to a hero in just a matter of maybe 2 minutes. And I couldn't get out of the tent. I couldn't get back to the dressing room. People were carrying me. It was just the most incredible thing. And I get back into the dressing room finally, and here comes Vince. Grabs me around the waist, lifted me up and down. He said, that was incredible. I can't believe what you just did. And that speech, oh my God, I said, well, I'll tell you what, Vince, you show us your side of the business, and I'll show you our side of business. And we're going to make a whole lot of money. And if I'm not mistaken, you'll be farting through silk before too long. And he started to laugh. And he said, okay, I'll be farting through silk. So that was the beginning of the hero of Sgt Slaughter against the Iron Sheik. That was like 1984, end of 83, 84. And that's where the hero began with the Sarge.
Sarge, not to just skip over some of it, the one big match, two big matches, two of the greatest in Madison Square Garden history. Obviously, you with the Sheik and you with Pat Patterson. So the Pat Patterson one came before you went down to the Carolinas, right?
Right.
The Kelly fight. Just to touch on it for a second, because that's such a seminal moment in wrestling history. The first really hardcore match. When you were first pitched that match, did you realize how big it could possibly be?
No idea. Vince McMahon Sr. Came to Pat and I and said, I want to have a blowout with you guys at the end. But he says, I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I'm gonna be thinking about it. So finally he came and he said, I want to have a match called the Alley Fight. So I said, the Alley Fight. Well, what's an alley fight? He said, I thought he thought about doing outside the Madison Square Garden in an alley somewhere, in a parking lot. And he said, I want you to have a match where there's no rules, because when we were doing our program to, continue on, the referee would get knocked down or we get disqualified and blah, blah. And to continue it on, Vince Sr. didn't want just a cage match. He wanted something different, crazy. So he said, we have this thing called the Alley Fight, where you wear whatever you want to wear. There's no rules. Went through the whole thing, and he said, no referee. And I did, I said, no referee. Okay. And I didn't give it much thought till you start thinking about it. Go out and have a match without a referee, that's not always the easiest thing to do, because that's your third party in there. That's who you try to work your heat with and sympathy with. So we worked up to that alley fight in Madison Square Garden, and I knew it was something special when we sold out the Garden and the felt form. That wasn't done very often. Bruno did it a few times, but we actually sold out the Forum, which is next like I was trying to do with Crockett, the closed circuit, the runoff. So we were like the maybe the fifth or sixth match, and people were just like, yeah, this isn't much, and they were wanting that match, that alley fight, because they knew that was going to be something. There was going to be a winner and or a loser. It wasn't going to be a disqualification. Wasn't going to be anything. So we went out, and of course Pat went out there first. And just before Pat goes out, I said to Ernie Roth, my general, I called him the general, and I said, Ernie, I want to ask you something. He goes, what, sir? How does this match end? I said, there's no referee. Who stops the match? He goes, that's a good question. And he runs off. And I guess he ran off to talk to Vince Sr. So Pat heads out. And got his New York, I love New York t-shirt on, and some blue jeans and some cowboy boots and a New York cap, and just playing with the crowd, New York, New York, New York. And so it's time for me to go out. And just as I'm going out, here comes the general. Don't worry about it. The old man's got it all taken care of. It's all just go till he gets there. So Pat and I go out there. We're just, so as soon as I get on the apron, there's no rules, there's no referees. Here comes Pat. Wham! Starts. I'm not even in the ring yet, and the match has already started. So if anybody's ever seen the match, it wasn't a long match, maybe about 20 minutes or so, but it was so much fun to tell that story because there was no referee. So we had to work in slow motion, basically, because everything had to mean something, because there was nobody there to ask you if you're going to quit or you're going to give up. No 1, 2, 3. There was no 1, 2, 3. There was no reason to put anybody in a Cobra clutch, because nobody's going to, unless he passed out, that's the only way that would have worked. So we just got to the point where I said to Pat, give me a catapult. And Pat said, a catapult? I said, yeah, into the corner. And I catapulted up into that corner, and I hit that damn post, and burn of my head and it was just instant blood. It was just like a faucet. And the first thing I thought of was my wife. My wife was on her way to New York City to bring me my birth certificate, because Vince McMahon Sr. wanted me to go to Japan, and I didn't have a passport. So there I am, and that's all I was thinking about. I see the blood all over everything, and I continue to work the match, but I'm thinking about, how is she going to find me? What hospital? I don't even know where I'm at. How is she going to find me at some hospital? I'm bleeding to death. So we just kept going and going and going and going. And finally got me outside the ring, and I'm coming back in, and I'm not giving up. And people were actually starting to cheer for me, because I was, a bloody mess and not wanting to stop. And the next thing I know, I see this damn towel come hit the rope where I'm standing. And I went, what the hell? And then it leaves. I said, oh, good. That was just somebody's shirt. And then here now it goes into the ring, and the bell starts ringing, and I look back, and Ernie Roth had thrown a towel in to stop the match, and Pat slides off and continues to sell what he was doing, and I look around, and just through the entrance, I see Vince McMahon Sr., and he gave me a thumbs up like that. And I don't know if he was going to do that to begin with, or if that was what he decided to do before we went in there, or if it just got to be where it was too bloody that he had to do something. But I don't know how the match was supposed to end until the towel went in there. But that is, like you said, hardcore before hardcore. And talent. Mick Foley said he was in the third row of ringside that night, and he said he just couldn't get over that match. That propelled him into getting into the business, and it was just a phenomenal, one of a kind match. And it just so happened, I guess the stars were lined correctly, but he had two ring generals, Pat Patterson and Sgt Slaughter, in a match where we never said a word to each other. We just did what came natural. And when it was time for him to take his belt off and start whipping me, that was fine. When it was time for me to get the brass knuckles out and I, put on the entourage, fall at 2 week, and it was just, everything just clicked that night. And of course, luckily, I could butterfly my head from having to go to the hospital. And my poor wife, when she saw me, she said, "Oh, what happened?" I said, "I just got a little gash there." So all of my passport pictures for 5-6 years or what, no matter how long you have your passport, has me with a big gouge Band-Aid on my head every time I think about that match. And
Sarge, how was Ernie Roth, the Grand Wizard? A lot's been made about Bobby Heenan for a very good reason, and Mr. Fuji, Lord Alfred Hayes, a lot of managers who came after him, but not a lot is said about the Grand Wizard. And also Arnie was a manager during kind of that time of the 70s, early 80s. How was the Grand Wizard to work with?
Phenomenal. He wouldn't do anything to bother you. He was there to do his job. He did the promos. If you could do, back then they assigned 4 or 5 managers to talk for the guys, because some guys couldn't talk. A funny story with the Animal, George Steele. George was a high school teacher, a history teacher, and a football coach. But when the red light came on, he stuttered. And so that was one of the reasons they gave him a manager, and that's how it started, because he couldn't talk. So somebody would talk for him. And finally, the old man, disrespect, when Vince McMahon Sr. Said, "You just do what you do. That's fine. Don't emphasize it even more." So that's how that character got created, was how much simpler could it have got? And he had somebody talking for him. But Ernie was a master mind. I mean, he could see if you were stumbling, not so much me, but other talents that were in front of a camera. If they were started stumbling or fumbling, boy, he'd just take over that microphone and finish that promo, so you didn't have to do it over. Because back then, JBL and Gerald, we used to do 50, 60 interviews in a day. You're gonna make a mistake once in a while, and just to have those guys to be there to back you up. Yeah, he was just one of a kind. I never really did much with him. Every once in a while we'd go out for dinner after a garden match, but he was just a professional. And of course, Bobby Heenan, because he was a worker also, because he could do the things in the ring, to me was probably the best in-ring performer manager that I'd ever met. He was my manager for a while when I was the Super Destroyer Mark II. I turned into against my partner and a couple other things, but Bobby was so much fun to be with. On top of it, I mean, he there wasn't much that Bobby didn't do or would do, and just great on the microphone, and just was that way even off the microphone. He was just a quick-witted kind of guy, and I miss him dearly. And we had a couple of fun incidents where we traveled, and a couple of little things happened to us, and even when he couldn't speak any longer, I would just have to make a couple of motions, and I felt sorry for him because he would start laughing so hard, and it hurt him, and I had to stop from doing that because it really hurt him at the end when he was ill there. But gosh, just so much fun. One time, a couple of ladies picked us up in Peoria, Illinois, to give us a ride. It was about a 50-minute ride to the hotel from the airport, a small airport that Vern would fly into. And so we're in the back of this van, and these two ladies weren't the nicest or the brightest looking ladies, but they loved us. They did everything for us. They'd buy us beers and all kinds of good things. But the perfume was pretty overdone. So Bobby and I are kind of like right down the road with our hands over our mouth. And finally, I looked over to Bobby. I said, "Do you think they believe us?" And he goes, "Who? Who believe us?" I said, "Our wives." "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, what if we veered off the road, crashed, and burned? And our wives might think that we were screwing around on them with these two ladies." You think they would ever believe that we didn't really do anything? We were just getting the ride. And so every time I would see him, I would say that to him, and he would just start to laugh and cry almost. And Super Destroyer Mark III, Neil Gay from Montreal, Canada, couldn't speak much English. So when we were teamed up together, Bobby was our manager, and we would always ask Neil, "Hey Neil, how are you going to drive to Omaha?" And he would look around, and then he'd look at us, and he'd go, "I don't know." And so every time, and no matter what we would ask him, the answer was always, "I don't know," because he couldn't speak English, and he always said, "I don't know." So every time I'd see Bobby, and he'd get close to me, I go, "I don't know," and he would just fall down laughing.
Sarge, when you had the right before WrestleMania 1, you were going to be one of the feature matches, and then because of the G.I. Joe contract, and you can explain what Vince went through with his own action figure line, you left and went back to Minnesota. But that WrestleMania 1 was so successful, and then you had WrestleMania 2, WrestleMania 3, and the success kept building. Did you feel at that point that, maybe I made a mistake? I know you said you didn't regret it, but at that point, did you know in Minnesota, I mean, this guy is taking over the business. Did you ever look at that and think, I might should have stayed or wanted to go back earlier?
It was, it crossed my mind a few times, but once I made the decision, I, basically stuck with what I made my decision with. And to kind of go through it quickly, Vince brought me into his office and showed me the prototypes of the LJN big rubber action figure. And he said, "Look what I'm going to put out and what we're going to do." And I said, "Wow, that's pretty cool." And I said, what's in it for us? And he goes, oh, don't worry about it. They're going to be good for everybody. I said, what's good for everybody? And he kept, evading the answer. So good friend of mine is an attorney in Connecticut. I was living in Connecticut, and I started telling him about it. He said, well, maybe we should go have a meeting with Vince. And I said, I don't know. Vince isn't into attorneys, and all that kind of thing. He said, well, this is your business. Sgt Slaughter is your business. You need to see what this is about. So we go back, and finally I said, do you mind if I bring my attorney friend in to talk about this? Why do you have to bring an attorney? Well, I just want him to kind of hear what this is all about. Okay, yeah, bring him. So following Saturday, go in, and he keeps asking Vince, so what is the deal? What's the percentage that the wrestlers are going to get? And Vince said, don't worry about it. Everybody's going to be taken care of. Well, what's being taken care of? What the figure on that? Can you round that off into like 1%, 0.02%? Just give us a number so we kind of know what. Don't worry about it. All right, I'll take care of it. So everything got kind of just a mess. And then I had a problem down in Charlotte where my family was living, and I had to make a move. And I said, I've got to make a move. So I got to tell Vince I'm giving him my notice. So I go up and I tell him I'm giving you my notice. What? All because of a percentage thing? I said, no, this is a personal thing. Well, you're not leaving. I'm not taking your notice, because we were building up to WrestleMania. And so we start negotiating all this stuff with the action figures and the T-shirts and all the memorabilia and things that they're going to sell, and could never get a number. So I said, I'll tell you what, Vince, I'll stay as long as I can get a little more time off so I can go back and forth to Charlotte a little bit more. Okay, not a problem. I'll tell the booker. So, what do you mean? You're the booker. So Sandy Scott came in, was kind of like the booker. He said, I'll tell Sandy.
George Scott.
George Scott, sorry. And so we got the slip to our towns. I booked more than I was before I made the complaint. Now I'm working 3 times on a Friday, 2 times on a Saturday, 2 times on a Sunday. It was like, what is this, a joke? Is this Danny Camper? I just asked for time off and I'm getting more. So anyway, we end up not agreeing on too many things. So finally, my attorney says it's time for us to go in and play hardball. Okay, so we go in. And he said, you tell me what you want Mr. McMahon to pay you, because I'm going to tell him that's what he can do. And he said, not everything you ask for is going to be taken, but we'll throw it up, and whatever sticks on the ceiling you're going to get, and whatever doesn't, he's going to stick with what he's got. Okay. So we go in to have this meeting with Vince. And I kind of got my head down the whole while, because my attorney goes, okay, Vince, here's what Sarge wants. He wants first class transportation. Okay. And Vince is writing this down. First class. Okay. He wants limo service. Okay. Go down this whole list. He wants 6 weeks paid vacation. What? 6 weeks paid vacation. Yeah, that's what he wants. Okay, 6 weeks paid. I mean, it was, I'm like, oh my God, 6 weeks paid vacation. So anyway, Vince says, give me a second, I'll go through all this. So finally, Mark's scribble stuff off. He says, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you first class transportation. I'm going to give you a limo service, or I'll get your rental cars and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to give you 4 weeks paid vacation. But so help me God, Sarge, if you tell anybody that you're getting paid vacation, you're done. Because if they find out you're getting it, they're all going to get it. I said, so we get up, shake hands, we're all set. Off we go. Come to find out, the toy deal starts getting messed up. So we go back in for another meeting with Vince. Now he's got George Scott, who's the promoter at Atlanta.
Jim Barnett. Jim Barnett.
Yeah, Barnett's there. A bunch of big wheels. The accountants, everybody's in this meeting. So Vince has got his chest out. Okay, this is it. I'm disgusted with all my people here, and this is what you're going to get. My attorney looks at, wait a minute, that's not what we agreed on. That's not what we shook hands on. Well, this is what it is. Because I own Sgt Slaughter. And he gets up and starts pointing at my attorney, pointing at his face. It's about this far from my attorney's nose. And finally, he says, and you attorneys, you're all a bunch of, saying all these vulgar things at my attorney. And you don't belong here. You don't belong in our business. I don't know why you're even here. And as far as I'm concerned, this meeting is over. And he's pointing at my attorney. Finally, my attorney's a collegiate champion wrestler in lightweights. He probably was about a 150. And he snatches Vince's finger, his index finger, and he starts pushing it back. And Vince is on his tiptoes. Oh. And he lets go. And he says, first off, Vince, get your fucking finger out of my face. Are we allowed to say that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you said it.
You said it. That's fine, folks.
Sorry. I just try to be as realistic as I can. And shoves it away. And he's second of all, you don't own Sgt Slaughter. Robert Rivas owns Sgt Slaughter. He says, I'll be damned. I own Sgt Slaughter. I made Sgt Slaughter. I'm Sgt Slaughter. And so my attorney opens up his briefcase, shows Vince a piece of paper. Vince looks at it. This meeting's dismissed. Emergency meeting. Now, I didn't know Vince went ahead and ordered all this stuff, Sgt Slaughter stuff. I took in 1975 when I first started Sgt Slaughter. My friend that took me to the barn to do the story on the pro wrestling training camp, he was in the military, and my wife was born in Fort Riley. So she wanted to go see the hospital where she was born. So he comes down, he's a major, and he can get right in and take us and show us. And while we're there, he says, Bob, you should take in your name and protect it. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you should sign some papers. What do they call that? Trademark. He said, you should trademark your name. I said, Sgt Slaughter? He said, yeah, I would. I said, what does it cost? He says, hardly anything. I'll do it for you. All you gotta do is sign it. Are you sure? Yeah. So I signed this paper. And just so happened that I owned Sgt Slaughter. So when Vince saw that he didn't own it, he went berserk. Wait a minute. I ordered all this damn shit, and now he can't sell. He's got to look at me a different way. Well, he wasn't putting up with that. but as we all know, he's not going to put up with that. So that was the beginning of the end. We ended up going to court. He sued me for $1 million. I was at a autograph session for 3-4 hours. I'm signing autographs. Finally, this guy has been there all day, kind of a trench coat on, and finally comes up. Hey, sir, yeah, would you mind signing a couple autographs for my nephews? No. What's their name? Good. And your real name is Robert Remus, right? I said, yeah. Serves me $1 million lawsuit. So I go back and get my stuff going off. I called my attorney. I find a payphone. Guess what? I just got served for $1 million lawsuit. By who? Vince McMahon, WWF. What? So, but that was a Friday or a Saturday. That was a Saturday. So Sunday morning, we didn't live too far from each other. He said, hey, why don't you come on over for a little brunch? I said, okay. So we're about 11 o'clock. He looks at his watch. And he goes, it's 11 o'clock. I should be getting a call pretty quick. I said, oh, yeah, from who? You'd be surprised. So pretty soon the phone rings. Hello? Yeah. Okay. All right. Guess what? What? Vince McMahon walked out to get his newspaper, and he lives in a secured, gated area. I said, yeah. He said, well, some kid on a bicycle said, hey, aren't you Vince McMahon? And he goes, I sure am. And he goes, here. He said, I served him $1 million lawsuit. Uh-oh, here we go. Man, I was JBL and Briscoe. I was in hot water from that point on. There was no surviving. So I just started, the G.I. Joe had started a little bit before all this had happened. So I had an opportunity. My attorney knew a friend that worked for, had a friend that worked for Hasbro. And they had lunch. And my attorney said, yeah, they were having lunch and they were talking about G.I. Joe and how they're going to go into a different direction. And that they're looking for a real life, spokesperson to be their ambassador and all this and that. And this guy said, well, what about Sgt Slaughter? He goes, Sgt Slaughter, that's what we've been talking about all morning. Do you know how to get a hold of him? He said, yeah, a friend of mine is his attorney. He's a friend. Call him up tomorrow. So we get the call. I head to Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Got the camouflage limo, Big D, Don Carnolo's driving it for me. We just about get to the building. I said, stop, Don. So I opened up the trunk. I bought 2 bumper fender flags. I put them on the front fenders of the camouflage limo. Got my name plastered all over it. I said, just drive around about 4 or 5 blocks real slow, as slow as you can go. And then when I tell you, drive up into the Pawtucket. They had like a outdoor awning that you drive under. He says, okay, my attorney's with me. So he said, what are you doing? I said, you'll see. So we drive around. Pretty soon I said, okay, it's time. We drive up into that Pawtucket office front door, and people are coming out of the woodwork. They're coming out of the restaurants, the barber shop, beauty shop, the hotels, wherever they're at. Here they come. And it's like a mob scene. And I look inside, and all these people are that are working for Hasbro are going, holy cow. So I walk in, we have this meeting, and I didn't say much of anything. And finally they said, well, we'll keep it in consideration, Mr. Remus, but you are kind of in the running for it. So I got up to leave, and I went to walk out and I turned around and I went into character. I said, listen up, you maggots. If you want a real American hero, you're looking at him. I'm Sgt Slaughter. If you want a real American hero, I'm the guy. You got it? Okay, you're dismissed. And I walked out, and my attorney's like, you are out of your mind. I said, hey, it's either make or break. So we stopped on our way back from Pawtucket to get some dinner. We didn't have cell phones back then, of course. He said, I better call my office, see if I got any calls. He comes back from the payphone. They've called 3 times. Who's called 3? Hasbro. They want to sign you. You're the guy. They want you to be their guy. Really? Okay. So the next time we go to Allentown, Pennsylvania, I can't wait to see Vince. Tell him what I've done. So here I go. I go in. Hey, Vince, I gotta talk to you. What is it? I said, you know G.I. Joe? Oh, yeah. I said, well, they want me to be their spokesperson, their ambassador. And what? Ain't that great? Sgt. Slaughter, the wrestler, G.I. Joe, the cartoon, the animation, blah, blah, blah. And he's going, yeah, I can't let you do it, sir. What do you mean? He said, I just signed with LJN yesterday, and that'd be a conflict of interest. But good job. Pat me on the back and walks away. That's right before all the LJN stuff started with the percentages and what's this and what's that. And so it was a battle. It was a battle from that point. And I'm trying to bring something to the table that's outside of wrestling. And he's fighting me the whole way. I said, Fitz, there's got to be a way. So finally he said to me, hey, Sarge, I've had enough of it. You either can be a wrestler with the WWF or you can be a G.I. Joe. What's it going to be? And of course, he expected me to say, oh, I'm going to be WWE, WWF. So I said, okay. So I home that night, have a dinner with my wife, my 2 daughters. And I'm just kind of like not eating and thinking, my wife across from me, Bob, what is wrong with you? I've never seen you like this. I said, well, I'm going to do this whole thing with Vince about G.I. Joe and wrestling, WrestleMania is coming. She said, well, what's the problem? I said, well, he said I can't be in the WWF and in G.I. Joe at the same time. So I have to make a decision. She said, well, that's pretty simple. I said, what do you mean it's simple? She goes, you can always be a wrestler, Bob. You can't always be a G.I. Joe. Yo, Joe. And I said, that's why you get the big bucks, honey. So that's when I made the decision. I said, I called Vince next day. I made my decision. Okay, pal, what's it going to be? I'm going to Hasbro, going to G.I. Joe. What? Wait a minute. We got WrestleMania. So all that escalated into the problems with the attorney and the lawsuits, and finally, for me to leave, I had to part ways and not be in that first WrestleMania. And tell you the truth, JBL, I was so tired of what I was going through. I lost interest in even watching WWE, WWF. I didn't even watch it. I didn't want to know anything about it. And WrestleMania 1 goes by, 2, 3, 4, 5. Finally, I'm somewhere. Vern Gagne told me that if I wanted to come back to the AWA and promote G.I. Joe, I was more than welcome. So that's why I went back to wrestle in the AWA for a while, just to promote G.I. Joe for no other reason. But that's the only reason I went back. And it was just, it just went. It was good. I did very well. I did very, very good. Still doing very well. And finally WrestleMania 6 is going to be on. So I'm in a hotel, I think it was in Columbus, Ohio, and I got done with an appearance on a Sunday afternoon, and I saw the advertisement. Back in those days, they have it in the hotel room where you could order a pay-per-view or a movie or something on your TV. So I called the front desk. Can I get the pay-per-view of the WWF that's on tonight? Oh, yes, sir. Just tell me, give me a credit card number. So I go down and have dinner, and I miss the first few matches. And finally, I come up and I turn it on, and it's a match right before Hogan and Warrior. So I watched the Hogan and Warrior match. But what really blew my socks off was the production. I went, holy cow. What have I been missing here? The last time I was with the WWF, they had like 3 cameras. All of a sudden, there's like 12, 14 cameras doing this pay-per-view. And I know you guys were probably on that show. But anyway, I go into the drawer of the hotel's room and get out a pad. I think it was staying at a Marriott or something. That's a plug for Marriott. And I get a pen and I put, Dear Vince, just watched WrestleMania 6. I have to give you a salute on your production. The most incredible show I've ever watched. I was truthful. I was blown away with the production. And I signed it, Sarge. P.S. The match between Warrior and Hulk Hogan, P.U. stunk, horrible. So I sent it off. But a week later, I get a call on a Sunday afternoon. I'm watching a NASCAR race, kind of dozing off a little bit. Ring, ring. Hello, Sarge. Yeah, Vince. Hey, Vince, how's it going? Hey, I wanted you to know I got your letter. I said, oh, you did? Yeah, and I appreciated very much what you said about the production. I worked very, very hard with everybody on all of this, and that means a lot to me that someone in your capacity saw the difference in a production from a wrestling match and the entertainment value of it. And he's gone through this whole thing. I said, oh, okay, yeah, I really enjoyed it. But the match, you go, yeah, I know about the match. I know it wasn't the greatest match, but hell, it sold it out. And so he said, by the way, he said, I see your contract with G.I. Joe is up. And I said, yeah, funny, you should know that. He goes, that's my business, Sarge. That's what I need to know those things. And I said, oh, yeah. He said, are you ready to go back to work? I said, for you? He goes, yeah. Yeah, I'm ready. He said, well, I got an idea. Okay. We'll be at my house tomorrow morning. I'm going to have a little workout and I got to go to the office. Come about 9 o'clock. I said, okay. So that night I have dinner with my daughters and my wife again. Guess where Dad's going tomorrow? Where are you going? To Vince McMahon's house. What? Where are you going there for? Well, he wants to talk to me. He wants me to come back to work. Oh, okay. I'm thinking, well, Vince is going to take Sgt Slaughter, the real American hero, and make him the real American hero, and kind of bury the hatchet, so to say. So I'm off to Vince's the next morning. Get there, get through the gate and pull up to his house. He comes out and greets me. It's like we hadn't seen each other for 2 days. We were hugging each other and how you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. You look great. I look great. You look great. Yeah. Come on in. So we go in. Would you like anything? Coffee? Oh, give me a coffee. So he said, come on here. So we go into his little library, little area he has off his living room there, entry. And walk in, and here's a diagram of the LA Coliseum, a prototype. Got big screen TVs on both ends and then on both sides. And he said, that's where WrestleMania 7 is going to take place. I said, really? Outdoor? You know, yeah, 104,000. I want to break the Detroit record. I said, great, unbelievable. I think you'll do it. He says, I know I'm going to do it, and I'm going to have you do it with me. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I want you and Hulk Hogan to sell that out. And I said, me and Hulk Hogan? He goes, yeah. I said, how are you going to make Hulk Hogan the villain? And he went right in my face. He goes, Hulk Hogan? No. You, G.I. Joe, are going to be the villain. And I went, what? Man, you really caught me off guard on that one. Element of surprise. And we still laugh about that today, all these element of surprises we played on each other. But anyway, like the trademark. And so he says, yeah, here's my idea. You are coming back from, we don't have to say G.I. Joe, but you're just returning and you're angry. You've got a chip on your shoulder. What is wrong with America? They're weak. They let little country like Iraq take over Kuwait, take all the uranium, and control the world. And you're angry at your military and your country, and you're really, he really laid it all out for me. And I'm like, And he goes, what do you think? And I said, I wanted to say, I think you're out of your mind. I said, I like it. I like it. I could see that. That can really be a good one. And he said, well, before you agree, go home and talk to your family about it because it could get a little dangerous. And I said, well, not a problem. I've been through that situation before. So off I go, have dinner that night. So how did the meeting go with Vince? I said, oh, my great. Great. We're going to go to the LA Coliseum, 104,000, Hulk Hogan and I. And it's going to be him and I in the main event. This is a year from now. And my wife says, oh, that's great. How is Vince going to make Hulk Hogan the villain? And I said, he's not going to be the villain. I am. She said, what? You're G.I. Joe. You can't do that. You're going to get, and I started telling her about the Iraqi thing. Well, I'm going to be upset with my country and I'm going to do this. She said, you can't, Bob, you can't do that. You're going to get killed. I said, well, she said, you've always done whatever you think is best for your character. You just don't do what you got to do. And I said, okay, you're the general. I'm off. So that's what started the whole my comeback. I was doing all of these vignettes outside military bases and growling and saying I didn't like my country and I'm just disappointed in what my military's become and weak and all this and that.
Sarge, one thing that's so interesting about this, excuse me for interrupting, is the nuance. It's not just, and this is what I loved about being a villain at WWE. There was always nuance. It wasn't just, I support Saddam Hussein, I support Iraq. You were mad at your country. So if you think about it on that level, it kind of makes sense. You're mad at my country's, weak, my country's this, my country's that. You're upset because you were a patriot in your own mind, but it's the nuance of being a villain that gets that level. It's just, I love stuff like that because that's Vince genius.
That's I was just gonna, you just took the words out of my mouth. That's where he was the genius, because as you just said, I was upset with my country, not Saddam. I was looking at Saddam as he's a hell of a general. he's not a president, he's a general, he's a military fighter, and he's defeating all of you guys, you know. And so Vince, when I told him, yeah, we're going to go for it, he just said, well, I'm going to let you run your own program, he said, and we're going to do these vignettes. And if you do something too far over the line, I'll pull you back. But just you go be Sgt Slaughter, the villain that we all know and love. And I said, okay, no holds barred, no holds barred. So we're about halfway through these vignettes, and I get a call Sunday night, about 3 o'clock or about 2 o'clock in the morning. Hello, Sarge? Yeah, Vince. Oh, hey, Vince. Got a problem. What's the problem? Ultimate Warrior broke Macho Man's hand in the match tonight. So he's on the lam. You got to take his spot in all these matches with the Warrior. I said, oh, okay. I never even met the Warrior before. I didn't know hardly what he looked like other than when I saw him on TV. So off I am. And he said, I hope you're in shape and ready. I said, I'll have to get in shape. So off we go. I take all of Randy's bookings, and it's me and the Ultimate Warrior. They're already into cage matches, and death matches, and no hold barred matches. I've been on the hiatus for 6 years, you know, doing nothing. So anyway,
We lost you, Sarge. Sarge, we lost your picture.
Oh, my battery's low. Can I plug you in? Let me see here.
Plug it in.
There you go. Okay.
Back.
Perfect. Okay. We'll probably have to. Should I get a cord and plug it back in? But anyway, I'll go a little bit faster. So, first match we do Warrior. I call 3 clotheslines. The first one I couldn't even get up. He knocked me so stiff with that first clothesline, I barely got up for the next 2. So after the match, I slid back over to my locker room, and I slid over to his locker room, and he's sitting there just minding his own business. I said, can I have a word with you? And we go into the shower, and he goes, yeah, what is it? Good match? Good match. I said, yeah, it was okay. But if you ever hit me with a clothesline like that again, you hit me all you want in the chest, but don't hit me in the face and in the head. You're going to kill me. He said, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I said, okay, I'll take that apology. But if it ever happens again, I'm going to retaliate. And I don't think you're going to like it. Oh, yeah, no, it's okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So anyway, we do all of these matches all over the place. And we end up, doing the match in Miami where I take the title, and Macho Man is re-healed. He comes down and helps me with the scepter and Sensational Sherry. And she was my manager for a while till he healed. And then I got General Adnan to come in. We were looking for somebody to be a manager for me, like a general. So somebody knew Billy White Wolf up in Minneapolis and called him, told him to come up to New York. And he put his outfit on, his Iraqi, he was from Iraq. He went to college with Saddam Hussein.
It was Olympian over there.
Yeah, Olympic wrestler. And got
and Saddam Hussein was his promotional partner in Iraq too.
Right. So he knew the language. He hated him. He hated Saddam. But here he is, putting them over in all these promos and stuff that we did. So I said, just do your stuff in whatever that language is that you speak, and I'll tell the people what you just said. And he said, okay. So that's how we always start out our interviews. He would start out, and I would take it. And we got so much. The first night in Hershey, Pennsylvania, when he was going to go out with me, Vince said, Billy, go put your outfit on and bring it to the office. He leaves, he comes in, and I'm telling you, JBL and Gerald, he looked just like Saddam Hussein when he walked through the door. he had this outfit on, that, like the general. The only thing is he had a plastic gun on his hip. And I said, whoa, 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 get rid of that damn plastic gun. I don't care if it's plastic or what it is. Don't wear that out there.
Uh-huh.
And don't give anybody any ideas. So we got rid of the plastic gun, but that was just instant heat. I mean, we did some crazy, crazy stuff. When it was Saddam's birthday, I stopped at a store, got a birthday cake. And I go out and tell the people, it's you may not know this, but today is Saddam Hussein's birthday. I'd like you all to stand up and say happy birthday to Saddam Hussein, you know. But I would time it to where whoever my opponent was, their music would hit. So they would be happy to see me get the cake in the face and, you know, all that, of what we did with it. And then I do little promos like, you may not know this, but today is Veterans Day in Iraq, and I'd like you all to stand up and give 10 seconds of silence to all the brave Iraqi soldiers who died in the overtake of Kuwait. And I mean, people want to kill me, you know? And I'd always time it so that the music would hit from my opponent. And that would satisfy the people. I just go flying and flying and flying until it was time to get some heat, you know. But
Sarge, is it true, Sarge, that you actually had to take your daughters out of their school because there was so much heat on them?
Yeah. I got right after I won the title in Miami. The next night we were in Philadelphia, and when I got there, Jay Strombo was the agent, and he goes, "Hey, Sarge, good job last night. Good job. Have you speaking or spoken to the what do you call him? The emperor."
Caesar.
Yeah. He said, "Emperor, did you speak to the emperor today?" I said, "Vince?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "No, I haven't talked." "Oh, have you spoken to your wife today?" I said, "No. Is there something wrong?" "Well, you know, I would give them both a call." So I find a payphone, call my wife first. No answer message. "Hey, I just want to call you. Okay, I'll get back to you later." I call Vince. He's just leaving for the office. "Hey, great match last night, Sarge. I just got back and I'm heading to the office. But have you spoken to your wife?" I said, "No. What's going on with my wife? Is there something wrong with my wife?" He said, "Well, no. Somebody called the wrestling office this morning and said they're going to kill you. They're going to kill your family. They're going to kill me and kill my family. Blow up our cars, blow up our homes, and blow up the office and the studio." And he said, "As a precaution, I called your wife to see if she could leave your house for a few days, just so I could get some security there." And I said, "Oh, really?" He goes, "Yeah, but everything's fine." So I finally get a hold of my wife. She's over at a girlfriend's house. And I said, "Geez, I'm sorry." She said, "I told you it was a good idea to do all this stuff." And I said, "Well, it's just a precaution." So I come home about 3 days later, and I lived in Connecticut where I had 4-acre piece of property on top of this plateau where you could hardly even get a car up the driveway. And when I got to the top of the driveway, there was a Winnebago in my driveway. I don't know how it got up there, but it was up there. And I get out of my car, and here comes 4 gentlemen. They got sports coats on, and they all came over, introduced themselves, said who they were with, opened up their lapels of their jackets and showed me they were packing weapons. And they said, "We've been told to watch and walk the perimeter of your property 24/7 until told not to. And we are going to take your children to school, your wife to the store, and to the beauty shop or whatever she has to go to. And we're going to follow you around." I said, "Well, you can follow me all you want, but you ain't taking my wife anywhere, and my children, you're not going to their school." Well, that's what we were told. So I said, "Okay." So I walk into the house, my wife's in there, and she's got the rolling pin ready to whack me, you know. And she said, "I'm not going to any place with an armed guard. And the kids aren't going to have armed guards." I know. But anyway, so a couple of times I had to go up to the school because, kids can be kids. And I had to tell all the kids at the school that I'm Robert Remus, their dad, and I'm an actor. I'm an entertainer, and what I do on television is exactly, I'm a portraying somebody, but it went in when you're out the other. So we had to be very careful. One night I got to Madison Square Garden. Vince says, some people want to talk to you in the back room over there. I go in there. It's 4 FBI guys. Mr. Remus, we were wondering if you would mind wearing this bulletproof vest when you wrestle. It's a new mesh that we wear under our clothing. And we would like you to, if you wouldn't mind, because whether you know it or not, every night you get death threats and bomb threats in the buildings. Half the time we're not even sure if we can let the show go on because we're getting all these threats. I said, oh yeah, I'll try it for a while. So that I did that, for a while. Finally, after all said and done, when the war started, we backed off. We said,
Sarge, I've never heard this part of the story and exactly how you were informed. I remember how I was informed, but how was you informed that they were pulling out of the Coliseum and going to the sports arena there in LA? And what was that? I'm sure it had to be a huge disappointment, both you and Terry and Vince. But
oh yeah,
how were you informed?
That was the worst day of my life was when Vince called me and said, Sarge, I got some bad news. And I didn't know what he was meaning. I said, what? He said, the LA Coliseum wants me to secure the Coliseum. It's going to cost between $4 and $5 million. And I just not going to do it. I can't do it. So we're going to move the show indoors to the arena, LA arena. And I said, what? No, because, as you know, JBL and Gerald, when you look up the records of matches and you see LA Coliseum, Hogan and Slaughter sold out 104,000, that's a badge. I mean, you don't have to be paid.
Yeah, I mean, Buddy Rogers, Lou says Kaminsky Park. It's a venue you remember, for eternity. Yeah. I mean, you guys would have been up there, and those legends. Even though you are legends, you're still up in there, and those guys.
Oh yeah.
The disappointment you had to have at that time had to be tremendous.
Yeah, and it was just heartbreaking. And I said, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" And I kept asking. Yes, Sarge, I'm not going to pay. He said, I can't pay that kind of money. He said, it's outrageous. They're trying to take advantage of me. And I said, oh my God, please. And so, there was all these rumors that, it wasn't drawing. And when I got my damn paycheck, it drew. The biggest paycheck I ever got. I never seen that much money. I mean,
well, it wasn't the advance, because the advance was pretty solid for that show.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going by what Vince told me. Vince told me that they wanted to secure the.
Well, that's the story that I'd heard. That's the reason I kind of asked you, because I wanted to know if what you were told, but we were all told, that the security, that the government wanted Vince to get so much security. They wanted tanks out there. They wanted helicopters circling the damn thing. They wanted all of this military presence there. And of course, Vince wasn't going to pay that $3 or $5 million, whatever it was, to secure all that place.
Right. Plus, I think they were afraid that some crazy person may have shot a bomb into the damn place. Who knows?
Sarge, was the security at your house, was that from Vince?
That was from Vince. Yeah, Vince made sure that that was there. And from that point on, whenever I left my house, when I traveled on an airplane, I never went through the airport. I would drive through the gates of an airport, like say LaGuardia, and drive right up underneath the plane. And I would go up the steps of the plane and be on the plane before anybody boarded. And people would come on and they'd see me and they go, how the hell did he get on here? And same way when we landed. As soon as I landed, everybody get off the plane, I'd go down the steps and get into a car, usually two police cars and usually a limo, but a lot of times just a passenger car would take me either to the hotel or to the arena, and nobody would ever see me coming or going. You know, if I was at the hotel, most of the time they would put our matches on right before intermission. So they would call me and say, "Car's coming to get you." So I'd already be dressed in my hotel, go to the arena. Everybody's already in it. So I would go out to have my match. And while they were announcing the next card during intermission, I would go back out, either back to the hotel or off to the airport for my next show, wherever we were going. And that's how it was for quite a while. The saddest part was during all this, I picked up I picked up Adnan one morning, and he was weeping, and he couldn't talk, and he had his beads. His worry beads, or what do they call them? And he was rubbing and crying. So finally, we were going in Texas somewhere. I think it was Laredo, and finally I got him to tell me what was wrong. He said that his whole family was wiped out by bombs from the night before. His brother was in the military with Saddam, and he called him and told him our whole family's been killed.
Wow.
And so he had to do all those promos all day. We were doing TV that day, and all day long he had to do those promos while knowing that his family had gotten wiped out by somebody he hated, and he's promoting, at the same time. That was, I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And I want to say, just in case he might be listening, I really feel sorry for him, because he just lost his son, and I'm not sure how it happened, but he was supposed to be with us, Gerald, as you know,
Waterloo.
In
Waterloo, Iowa, where you're gonna honor your fallen comrade Don Kernoodle, who
Yes.
finally after all these years, and through a lot of assists from you and a lot of prodding from you to me, we finally got him inducted into the nominated and voted unanimously into the Dan Gable, George Tregus, Luthez Hall of Fame out in Waterloo, Iowa. Next weekend, matter of fact, and you and Bob
15th,
Roop
what is
and
it,
Wally
July
are
15th?
going to be there to honor Don. So
Next weekend, yeah. Hope anybody that's listening or watching, please, if you get anywhere near Waterloo, come by. Be a great time to come by. It's the July 15th through the 17th.
Correct.
And it'd be great to see everybody and pay honors to all those that are being inducted.
Yeah, Sarge, to go out on a high note here, you know, all this heat that you had, I mean, through beautiful Bob Remus and Bobby Remus and, Sgt Slaughter, G.I. Joe and all this, and these iconic matches with Pat Patterson and everybody else you had with. And then the big deal with Hogan. You ended up doing one of the most iconic bits ever in the history of DX and sports entertainment. You know which one I'm talking about?
This was awesome. Awesome.
Would you tell us your feelings and your
Mark,
story?
I gotta tell you, that was one. I don't know how. I've been out there and been surprised by guys. You know how it was, the Attitude Era. Both of you guys do. We lived through before, during, and after. Guys would just surprise you with stuff to see if they could get you to laugh. And that was some of the most creative stuff. Sarge, I have no idea how you kept a straight face during that.
I don't either.
Everybody remembers.
I don't either, JBL. We were running hard and heavy and every night, and always doing little fun things to each other, trying to make each other laugh, as you know, JBL and Gerald, as you had mentioned. That was kind of the fun part of the business, was trying to get somebody to laugh, especially live television. And I'd get Gene Okerlund every once in a while to break up. because I'd say something crazy, and I do it on purpose, you know, just to try to get him to laugh. But he always, you know, made it even more funny. But that night I came out and I was going to give them the riot act, and as I came down, I still laugh about it. And I came down to the ring, and I get into the ring, and I see a paper bag, 2 paper bags sitting in the ring. And as everybody knows, when I scream and holler as I did to Vince on that first promo, I was spitting all over his face.
The first row was covered. That's like Gallagher at a watermelon concert.
Yeah. I apologize to everybody that I ever do a promo with before, and I also apologize after. I am sorry, but my jaw doesn't allow me to keep the spit in my mouth. I'm sorry, but I want to apologize to you. So anyway, I go out there and I see the 2 bags, and I start looking up. I'm thinking, there's probably going to be some of that green stuff falling on my head here. You know, they're up to something. So I start giving them the riot act. And all of a sudden, Shawn Michael goes, hold it, Sarge. Hang on a second before you get too much further. You know, how he could animate himself, and his old buddy sitting next to him chuckling, you know, trying to make me to laugh. And I still didn't know what was going on. So finally, hey, Sarge, just hang on a second before you get too much. And they reach down and they take these clear masks out, welding masks with it was clear face, and they put them on their face. And I looked and I went, oh, that's kind of cute, you know, trying to tell me that I'm spitting too much. So I said, all right, well, that's real cute. And I started to bring your brain up again, and they said, oh, whoa, Sergeant, hang on a second. And they reach up and they push the button, and the damn windshield wipers started going on those shields. I'm telling you, JBL, I don't know how I did not burst out laughing, but I kept a straight face as best I could. I think I've still got a hole of my lip from biting my lip on that one, but that was the most hilarious thing I've ever been involved in professional wrestling. I mean, I've seen guys drop their pants and fall off the top of a turnbuckle onto the floor and different incidences, but that was a classic. I mean, I wish they would show that more often on some bloopers or whatever. It wasn't really a blooper, but it was.
You know, hilarious. John might be able to arrange showing that at. He got some contact with WWE.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's become one of the most iconic moments of the Attitude Era. I mean, it's just, and it's every time you see it, it's just funny.
Yeah. But to be there and be part of it and know that you didn't laugh. I mean, that took everything I had. I mean, I've been in situations, you know, Montreal screw job and all that stuff, girl. We were right in that locker room when all the stuff happened, and you know, it was just one of that. I mean, that was business back then. You know, but this was entertainment. That windshield wiper thing was entertainment, and we entertained each other. And I'm getting low on the battery.
I saw it. Listen, we can't thank you enough, man. This is such a wonderful journey you just took us on, and getting to see you is always a pleasure as well. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. You know, Vince McMahon sat down with me at a catering one day in Atlanta, Georgia. We were inside the Dome doing a show, and he says, Sarge, you know, someday you should write a book. And I said, Vince, it had to be an encyclopedia. And 6 weeks later, they had the WWE encyclopedia.
Well, Sarge, I can't thank you enough, and I look so forward to seeing you next week in Waterloo, Iowa, at the Blue Thesz George Tragus Dan Gable Museum.
Yes.
And I'm sure, even though our brother Don Kernoodle will not be there physically with us, you know, he'll be there in spirit, and I look forward to what you have to say about just a wonderful young man that Don was. So thanks so much for being here with us. Hope you enjoyed it as much as John and I have. We had a blast doing these things.
I hope I didn't talk your ears off too much, and
Never.
I look forward to coming to Waterloo, and I got some great stories about Don. And like I said, if anybody's near Waterloo this weekend, the 15th through the 17th, please come. I'll be in Monroe, Pennsylvania, the 9th of July, Niles, Ohio on the 10th, Savannah, Georgia, the 23rd, 25th of July, Raleigh, North Carolina, July 29th through the 1st. Is that enough plugs or what?
You plug anything that you want to after today, brother.
All right. Thank you. Love you both. Can't wait to give you both hugs and a Cobra clutch.